Okay.
All right.
Discord took a shit and died. We're back. Anyways, yes, the railroad,
This is
very
the
gritty.
Cursed podcast.
Yes. Cursed podcast.
Okay.
Go away, Radiant
So,
software. Go away. Ah.
um, so we were talking about how horrible Lincoln pins were and how people lost their fingers, and yeah, that happened. Um, so that brings us to the knuckle coupler that we all know and love today.
The
I don't know if
safety
we actually
coupler.
love
The
it.
Burns automatic car coupler.
And like we should note, the original knuckle couplers, they designed them so that they're still interchangeable with pin couplers for a little while.
Yeah, it's
Hmm.
pretty neat. They had to be. I mean, the railroads weren't going to adopt them wholesale. That's for sure.
Nothing turns a conductor's head into beef-like homogenate better than the automatic car coupler.
Oh God.
Jesus. Because they had problems adapting to these things. They really did.
Why?
Man.
Yeah.
I
Because they
bet.
couldn't figure out that once it came together, it did not come apart.
Yep.
Huh.
Fun.
Again, you said it's the cursed podcast. I had to add that.
Yeah.
And we,
Okay.
to some degree, still have this problem today.
People
With,
do get coupled up a lot to this day.
Yeah.
Usually
in
for the
class.
dumbest reasons.
Well, it's like
Yeah.
it was really sobering. One of the things that influenced me into getting out of my railroad career right here at the end, obviously one being a second child, and another was one of many factors was that like Brandon Warnick got killed. I didn't know him personally, but I knew of him and had talked to him before. But he was riding a shove like into an industry, and there was like a gate, I guess, and it was like kind of fouling the track a bit. So I guess he like reached out to kick it or something and fell and got run over by his own train. Um,
Oh
Yeah, he
no.
had a trainee with
he
him,
did
I
have a
remember
trainee
reading.
with him. Yeah, that was. But that cut deep. I was like, man, to this day, people, it is a dangerous, deadly thing, and I think about that, and then like these dudes had nothing to keep them safe back then. Like
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
And
just
like, yeah.
this thing that still kills railroaders to this day is such a dramatic fucking improvement over what those guys were using before. Like you got to think
Hmm.
this is a
Yeah.
very effective beef like homogenate producing instrument, and it's still a million times safer.
And when we're still talking about this, it reminds me of the I think you posted the video the other day, or maybe it was the meme lord shitpost hype train, where the guy is just backing up the locomotive, not paying attention at like notch one or two.
Oh yeah, and then just couples up at a good a good brisk pace. Gets
Yeah.
bumped out of the chair a
So,
bit.
so that
Yep.
was actually for a slack action study. That was intentional.
Uh, you could tell
I
he
liked
did
it
not
better
like
when I
it
thought
though.
it wasn't intentional.
I
Hmm.
figured it had to be because it was filmed, but
Hmm.
Yeah. Anyways, telescoping.
yay! I
No.
love astronomy.
So this was more common with woodside cars and wood frame cars, but we'll talk about a little bit more in a minute. Um, when trains have derailments, that is commonly known as a bad time. If you did not know,
Fun fact: did you know that
and
before they figured out that PTSD was like a brain trauma related thing, there was a medical condition called railroad spine, because people that would survive train wrecks would have such horrible, crippling fucking PTSD they couldn't function, and they thought it was like spine damage causing it. So like
really,
PTSD was originally known as railroad spine, and it was
Jesus.
identified. It was identified before World War One, but that's you see the same thing in World War One where they're calling it shell shock because they think it's like the blast from the shells are fucking with your brain or something, but it's like no, I'm just traumatized.
and
Yeah.
then in the Civil War, they just called you crazy.
Yeah, or you called you a pussy deserter.
I remember reading things like, and hearing things from the Civil War, and it's like you look back on it, I was like, oh my god, those guys saw just horrible things, and like, yeah, they're traumatized. And like, I remember somebody was like, yeah, like he just chronically masturbated, like every hour he masturbated, so we sent him to the mental institution. And I was like, I feel like that's a somewhat like it's not the healthiest way you could deal with that, but like,
That is certainly a
I see
symptom.
this as I see
yeah,
this
like
as a win-win.
so that's pretty horrible. But if the doctors of today could go back to the past, we'd probably have a much more progressive society.
This is true.
Um,
Um, oh, just an
so,
update.
anyways,
Chessie
with this,
Chessie is now laying in bed with mommy. He's very
oh,
cozy.
Aw.
He's actually up
No.
and goosing around a little bit. I'm surprised. So I guess he's feeling spunky.
good. So, what happens with this is that when the trains come to a sudden stop with wood under frame cars, it can only take so much force. And
Mhm.
what's going to happen is the wood's going to splinter, the wood's going to explode. If the splinters from the car don't get you, which that's known to have happened, I mean, at this speed, they just kind of
Ask anyone in the Royal Navy at any period at all with wooden warships. They'll tell you splinters are not a good thing.
no, they're deadly. Um, so if the splinters don't get you, you might get a car directly to the face. Because
I'm just
these
thinking
things
about
have a
sitting.
bad habit.
I'm thinking about sitting midway through that car, and that's gonna be like a fucking drive under an 18-wheeler scenario.
Well, and yeah, and you see right here, the cross beam
Still
on
there.
this car is actually still intact.
Yeah,
Right here.
that's a knife.
So
That is a giant wooden knife.
yeah,
It's
so
a
it's just
guillotine at
creeping
head
everything.
level.
That
And
is yeah.
the
That
thing
is
is,
face level. Yeah.
I pulled up this picture because I wanted to see this, but I'm looking at this and I'm now having like that grim realization of like somebody probably died
Oh, multiple people died.
in
I don't
in
see
for
anybody before
this
that first
photo.
window right there. They're probably dead too. Your back three
Yeah,
We're very
windows.
good at limbo.
Yeah. Your back three
yeah.
windows, one or two people might have made it out, and I say that because maybe they didn't get splinters, and the car does not appear to have caught on fire, which is a thing that these things love to do. I mean, like
Yeah,
Just not
because
on
I
literally
mean, there's
fire
take.
yet.
we had coal fire stoves in these things.
Mhm.
So, the car tips over, the car experiences any trauma, the bolt shear. Next thing you know, you got coals that are being scattered across a wooden floor in a wooden car, which, if you guys have never played with fire, you should fix that. But also, that does usually cause fire. And we're not even talking about the baggage agent that was probably in this car that just simultaneously had a floor disappear from under him.
And a roof say hello.
Yeah. So this was pretty horrible. This gets a little bit better when they have steel underframes, but it's not unheard of.
So I'll take this one.
Thank you,
This
because I know
is
nothing about it.
this is the wreck of the Southern Crescent and the northbound Southerner. So that hot mess. Long story short, train inciting doesn't stop inciting, meeting the other train that's on Main, the fun way. The
I don't
car
know if I'd
that
classify this as fun.
No, but you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
The car that you see that looks fine is a Bud built coach. The car above, which I don't know what it was built as, is a Pullman built stainless steel fluted car. The Bud, so the engines met head on and moved out of the way. And but when they hit, the Bud car was behind the Pullman, is from what I'm reading anyway. If somebody wants to yell at me, I'll see you in the comments. Uh, the Pullman was behind or in front of the Bud, and when the two trains met, the forces pushed the Bud car straight through the Pullman and made it a nice little hat for the Bud car.
Oh my
Um,
god.
Jesus.
I can't even fathom because it pushed the entire frame. If you look at the after effect of the aerials, it pushed the entire frame of the Pullman out of the way. So if you were in any of those seats, you just kind of
Didn't
left.
have a train car anymore.
Yeah, well, you left with the thing, but the wall was still there. And if you were in the Bud, you were fine. Everybody in that car, is my understanding, the only people that died from being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Nobody died from actually getting plaster tated.
Jesus.
So
If you guys take anything away from this podcast, relating passenger car bad times, just let it be known that momentum is a bitch.
and ride in a bug car.
Riding a bud
Yes.
car.
Don't
That's
break.
420 joke, David.
What'd you say?
We said riding a bud car. I didn't know if that was a 420 joke.
You know what? Yes, it is. Sorry, Chessie was doing something. I was trying to pay attention.
I have to make that meme now.
Yeah.
I got
Um,
I got one thing to say on the where we're transitioning.
Yeah.
Another thing about the coaches and the stoves, you were talking about how they burst into flames.
Mhm.
Well, the other thing that's really bad, and it happened to the nickel plate 62, is when they swapped to
Steam heat.
steel-sided cars, you couldn't get out. You could get
Oh
trapped in them.
shit.
And the nickel plate 62 got sideswiped, and the steam engine landed inside the coach, and one of the supply pipes piped steam directly into the car, which boiled everyone alive in it almost instantly.
Oh
Jesus
my
But
shit.
god.
they
I never will ride on a railroad in the past.
yeah, always rail
Jesus.
fan in the past, never ride.
Never
Hey, rail
ride.
Yeah,
fanning.
but
Rail fanning was probably pretty deadly too. I don't know.
yeah, that's when they transitioned. It was so rigid that it still held up, and everybody was fine until they weren't. So
I'm sorry, you said this was with steel-sided cars?
yes, this is nickel plate 60. It still exists. They re-sided it, put it back in service. It runs on Midwest Preservation Society owns it.
It's
They
haunted
run
as
it
fuck.
sometimes.
Just so you know, it's haunted as fuck.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And
This speaking of haunted as fuck, I'm absolutely posting this on Northeast Cryptid Removal Organization.
The forbidden spaghetti.
This is a cryptid all its own. Boiler explosions are fucking scary.
it sneezed.
And this is actually what we could quote unquote call a safe one, because the entire boiler didn't detonate. It detonated out of the smoke box.
Generally,
It
when you're
detonated
behind the
forward.
firebox and the smoke box is on the other end, you want to be behind. You want to be on the other end of where this is happening.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But
You're still gonna
this
probably
is,
get blowback through the firebox store and you'll die anyway, but
Well,
depends on how good those firebox doors are.
that's true. Yeah.
So this is something that became really common, or not really common, but common enough. Boiler explosions. If you didn't have your fireman that was doing the right job, sometimes they'd let the boiler go pretty much dry, and they'd try and kind of make up for their fuck up by just dumping a bunch of cold water into superheated pipes,
Mhm.
which caused an instant amount of steam, which caused this. Um, yeah.
yeah.
Going
What
back
is
to
there to say?
momentum,
Mhm.
imagine the amount of force that put in the reverse direction.
Oh my god, got it. It had to be like
Jeez.
firing a cannon.
It's like watching
Yeah.
like ships in World War II explode. Like watching the footage is just like unbelievable. Like it's crazy how I mean, obviously these are a lot smaller scale, but they're also a lot more lightly built too. So like the
Yeah.
force of watching this has got to be just unfucking believable.
So, as much as we love them, steam engines are fucking dangerous. Um, Probably the worst thing on this list is that
Monon.
Monon did my guns.
Yeah, Monon did Mike Pence.
Yep.
Gettysburg
Uh,
Railroad.
well, and in this
Speaking of
photo,
sneezing,
this Cadillac and Lake City 127, formerly Steamtown 127. But yes, Gettysburg Railroad.
Um, Not a notoriously good railroad.
No.
Nope.
it has a bit of a negative
Um,
side to
Rapido
it.
is supposed to come out with a model of this style of steam locomotive, and I truly hope that when they do, they offer it in Gettysburg 1278.
Is the smoke going to come out of the stack and the cab, or just?
That's dark.
oh
I
boy. Well, to talk about the forbidden tea kettle in the room, they blew this up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, almost sky high.
Oh, like
Yeah, not
I'll link the NTSB report in the comments. It's a terror. It's a it's a scary read. This railroad is so
We
hilariously unsafe.
we have we actually have a whole planned podcast on this particular incident because it winds up actually changing the entire tourist railroad and steam preservation kind of everything.
Mhm.
Um,
This is what gave us FRA Part 230. Is that correct?
yes, it's Rule 230.
Basically, the Gettysburg is what happened if like you gave all of us a railroad, but we were dumb enough to try to run steam, just not knowing how.
Yeah.
Like it's
I
like
feel like Casey Jones would stop us.
um well, we got like a couple educated people, but imagine like they went home for the day and then it was like me in charge.
Yeah.
That's what
So
Gettysburg was like. It's like, yeah,
It's like we'd show up, you and I would show up and it'd be like, all right, you get to be the engineer on the trip out, I get to be it on the way back.
yeah, and
You know,
Yep.
I
oh
one of
this
us
was
oh
would
a
fuck up
family
they
being
run.
they
fireman.
so one of the things they did do that was pretty cool. They had a double deck open air car built out of an old auto rack. I just think
gotta
that's
Mm,
add
worth
this
that's
in
noting.
pretty
post.
neat. Yeah, that's
That
pretty
is
It,
cool.
cool.
yeah, talk about setting the stage for the worst steam disaster is the auto rack was going to inevitably be the
The
worst
lead.
passenger disaster on a scenic tourist railroad.
Yeah, if it actually like blew like how most of us would expect it to have.
Yeah, it was the lead
Yeah.
car, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. If this
Behind
was
the engine.
anything other than this kind of firebox, everybody in that car would have fucking died.
Yeah,
Yep.
also
So
going back to the crew qualifications just real fast. Didn't the one guy like say his qualification was that, oh, I ran steam for like 10 minutes as a like 12-year-old boy on the PRR.
Yeah,
Like I used to
his
double
dad
crawl
like
or
taught him
whatever.
how to drive steam or something when he was a
Yeah.
kid because his
Yeah.
dad worked there. By the way, this is like a family-owned railroad at the time, and like
Mhm.
the dude that owned it, what was his like his son was just like the head of the training department, and there was no formal training for how to run a steam
Yeah.
engine.
Yeah, it was
not
all
only that, it wasn't
HTTP.
maintained and they couldn't read the gauge as well. I mean, there's a variety of reasons here, but it ends up with this. It ends up with the forbidden dumpling in the firebox.
Yummy.
Um, these are bolts. These usually hold the top of the firebox to the boiler, and there was excess steam pressure, and popped a bunch of these bolts, and it came down in this. Like David said, this is all due to the quality of the CP's design. Why nobody died in this incident. But the big thing is like these bolts came flying out like bullets. I mean, they were
Fireboxes
propelled.
are notoriously not supposed to look like that.
No.
Giving
So
Chernobyl a run for its money.
Yeah,
yeah, we
that is
were
the
saying
elephant
earlier that
foot of
this
steamy
photo
boys.
reminds us of the elephant foot. Um, the elephant foot though does have a claim to fame above this, which is the photo was given to somebody with the caption, "This cost a man's life for this photo."
Lord.
That's fucking crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
because
elephant still has a body count.
apparently the guy like went in there to take a picture of the elephant's foot and got a lethal dose of radiation. Um, the Soviet Union was wild because like they saw the elephant's foot and they were like, "Oh man, let's take a picture of that." Oh, he died from it. And they're like, "Well, let's do some experiments with the elephant." They shot an AK-47 at the elephant's foot,
Fallout vibes.
which is the most Russian thing I can think of.
So from what I understand, I don't, I'm not a steam expert, but basically like the bolts blow out and then the steam blows the firebox out, right? Like it puts out the
Yes.
fire. Most fireboxes don't do that. They just explode and then it just blows steam and the fire into the cab.
Yep.
This is designed to vent pressure slowly initially. I mean, one of the first bolt blows out, that should extinguish the fire, and then if you've got a good firebox doors, hopefully not too much comes out and fucks you up. But a lot did. Like the crew in this got hurt really badly. I think one guy, like, he was in critical condition, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, I think Thunderbolt 1000 on YouTube did a nice video about this.
Hmm? Yeah, his content's really improved in recent years, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was gonna
he's a
watch that,
guilty
and then I
pleasure.
read the NTSB report about it, and then I never watched it.
Yeah.
But I
He's
should.
got some good footage in there. But anyways, moving on. So, of course, this kind of deadline this locomotive, and I honestly expected it to be scrapped after this. I was following this locomotive as I'm doing research for my book, and I bought a slide of it. You can now
Ooh.
see this very locomotive at the Age of Steam Roundhouse in Ohio.
That's where it went.
Yep. Yeah, and check out. So this is a slide that I bought, and like nobody else bid on it because who would want a slide of this except for me? But yeah, it's just super. Actually, we should probably use this on. I should probably send this to David. Um, but yeah, just look at how clapped out it is. And then it's got plywood over everything, and then you can see right there, Ohio Central,
Ohio Central 1273.
78.
78, yeah, sorry.
That's duct tape, or no, I'm sorry, those are 2x4s. But yeah, this thing got pretty clapped out. It is my understanding that it either has been or it's going to be cosmetically restored.
For the best.
Yes. Yes.
If I become a millionaire, I will bring this locomotive back.
Well, you'll bring
So
back
donate.
the frame and the cab. You ain't gonna bring much else back.
Yeah,
exactly. They're building a completely new boiler for the T1. I think we can bring back this.
Yeah, but with a new
like-
boiler.
Yeah.
Okay, look. You're rebuilding the Titanic here, okay?
No,
like,
that's not happening. That same story has been recycled since like 2009. That's not actually happening. The dude that says that's not happening.
I'm just saying.
Are you going to run it on the main line?
Yes.
I'm just saying that I think this beautiful locomotive, this beautiful Canadian Pacific locomotive, deserves a chance at redemption.
Restore Hartford Slocum 913. Fuck you, TVRM. It ran when you got it.
Donate to our Patreon so that we can afford to completely refund building 1278.
Well, the goal is you buy the Gettysburg, you buy the 1278, you restore the
and then you do it the right
1278.
way.
Well, no, you restore the 1278, you cause another crown sheet failure, and then you use the extra parts to build your Tom Thumb replica.
You forgot the part where the second crown sheet failure kills all steam railroading in the country.
Oh, and also don't forget rebuilding the T1.
And the state of Alabama is going to pay for it.
Yes.
No, I'm just saying.
I would like to say I do not associate with your opinion on that. The guys doing that are crazy in the good way.
Yeah.
Oh, like we love them. We love that.
We're trying to cast a driver with the channel name for the 5550. That's actually our first Patreon goal. I'm gonna put a dick on it.
Yep. Big old eggplant emoji.
Big old dong.
So yeah. Anyways, what I am excited about for this, just a tangent because we never get on tangents, is Rapido is supposed to be making a model of this locomotive, and when they are ready to do so, I will be signing up for like the first one. I want this locomotive bed. I'm not specifically 1278, but like this model, and it will become Steamtown 127, which is what it was before it went to Gettysburg. Can you believe that Steamtown traded this beautiful masterpiece for a CN locomotive?
Hey,
all right, look at that.
Bastards. Speaking of bastards,
it's E. Hunter Harrison looking like Ed McMahon.
Vince McMahon.
God damn.
This man.
Here's Johnny.
This man took the Illinois Central Railroad from you.
This man took half the trains you would normally see in a day from you.
This man took the CSX Dothan Subs glory years from you.
This man took 25-15 on from you.
This man took a lot of railroad out of Florida.
This man stole my wife and murdered my children and burned down my house and delivered a plague upon my crops.
Okay, now you're sounding like one of the furloughed conductors, all right? Calm down.
I mean, he did, though.
Oh God, this reminds me of that one episode of Well, There's Your Problem, where they find out that like RGB died, and then they just laughed. That was
Aw.
me because I got a phone call about this. I was driving in New Jersey, like I was driving my friend's car going somewhere, and I got the call about it, and I laughed so hard I had to stop.
Who?
Yeah. That's Bader
When
Ginsburg.
EHH died. No, not RGB. When EHH
Oh,
died.
Yeah.
okay. I was confused for a minute. You said RGB. I'm like, Ruth Bader Ginsburg? Okay.
Yeah, I've
Right.
got a buddy.
Andrew Harrison.
Um, he calls him Headhunter Harrison.
Yeah.
Um,
Accurate.
Found our
so
next
what was Harrison's
SCP.
background? Because I know nothing about Harrison other than Harrison Bad.
He was spawned by a
Yeah.
named man Lucifer, and soon after became low-level management at the Illinois Central Railroad.
Actually, he started as a brakeman working for the Illinois
So this
Central.
man was a railroader, and he fucked up railroading for the rest of us.
Yes.
Yep.
It's amazing what having
Yeah.
money will do.
Oh my god.
Well, it's
Do you see
it's
the
like
dollar
there's
signs in his eyes? Come on.
there's like two components to PSR. There's like PSR, the operating practice, and then PSR, the aggressive, absolute batshit cost cutting that comes along with it because a lot of these executives don't want to admit that, PSR within itself as an operating model can actually
Oh,
achieve all of these cost
let me.
savings.
I got a slide for this. There we are.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, pretty much what they're doing with PSR is they're trying to balance operations. One train goes one direction a day, another train comes back the other direction a day. You max out the tonnage capacity of those trains per the available locomotives, and then you use pricing to try to, make sure that those trains are full, if that makes sense. Um, so you don't have like unit trains that run once a week or maybe a few days a week in the fall.
That's right. This man took from you the Tropicana juice train.
Yeah, it's so like it created these crazy long manifests that
Well,
are blocked
the
and
trains
use a
that go
lot of
by my
flat
house,
switching.
the trains that go by my house are fucking bananas. The Atlanta to Birmingham road freights, the lengths are out of this world. And where I'm from in
Yeah,
Alabama, man, the A trains run in both directions. This line used to see 5 or 6 trains a day, and they might only, most of them probably only work the major yards, or Thomasville, Dothan, Montgomery, but then you had locals that went out and did all the other work, and now there are 2 fucking freight trains a day, one each direction. It takes 3 days to get from Waycross to Montgomery, and they work every fucking industry the whole way,
Oof.
every day.
yes.
Anything
So
that
I
has
mean,
cars, every single day, the one road freight a day has to work it.
Jesus.
and like railroads are chaotic enough to begin with, but when you start doing stuff like this and eliminating all of these excess assets, engines, infrastructure, and
And
even like employees too, I mean, since this has been adopted as the operating model nationwide, there's been like I think a 20,000 person headcount reduction at most of at the combined total of all the Class One railroads. Like it's insane. And then
Not
on
only
top
that,
of that, they
it's coming out that PSR is not safe.
well,
We're
and
seeing some of the most violent wrecks that we've seen in a long time.
and it's you start with like, hey, we're gonna run the railroad a little more efficiently, but then you do stuff like take all the coffee machines and chairs out of the yard office because you don't want employees to sit around. You cut the inspection time that carmen have per car to actually, inspect the car, and all of that stuff came with PSR, but is not just PSR itself, and it's it's kind of a mess. The railroads have really cut everything to the bone in an attempt to save money, in addition to adopting PSR as their operating model.
many,
They're really trying very hard to get the Staggers Act back. Is what it's coming to.
many years
Hmm.
ago, railroads made their money by delivering freight. Nowadays, railroads base most of their worth off their stock market value. Um,
There it is.
we live in a time where it's pretty easy to say that we're more profitable because we're spending less. What they don't tell you is that in this process, they've lost probably the amount of money they've saved. They've probably lost two or three times over and lost revenue, lost traffic because this is the customer service in the entire industry is absolutely driving people away in droves back to trucking. Even if trucking isn't, I know a lot of smaller companies in Alabama, especially like agro places, are still, or that could get rail cars. A steel place in Webb, Alabama, being an example, is that it's more expensive per shipment by truck, but the railroad is too inconsistent and too hard to work with.
And in many cases, that's always been a problem with the railroads and competing against trucking. Even prior to the adoption of PSR, even though railroad like per ton mile, have been growing in that regard, they've actually been losing total market share,
Hmm.
especially now that coal is starting to dry up, which is always sort of, I don't want to say padded a lot of those numbers for the railroads, but
It certainly didn't hurt.
I think that's probably fair.
yeah, so the PSR makes it very difficult for the railroads to be competitive because it does limit your ability to grow volume because where you've capped out your capacity, you just raise pricing.
Hmm.
And Norfolk Southern has kind of said the quiet part out loud due to the truck driver shortage. I think a year or two ago, they were pretty much like, "Yeah, we're going to do PSR and we're going to raise pricing and we're going to have a bunch more money." I can't find the exact press release that was in, but yeah, PSR bad, railroads bad, and unfortunately that means more freight going to trucks, getting on the highways. It's worse for the environment, and it means that a lot of good union jobs are going away.
Mhm.
And will
And the
not.
worst of it is, oh, go ahead,
I was
David.
gonna say they will not be coming back. I mean, you're not gonna see the manpower come back. I don't think. If they do, it's gonna be going to short lines.
Well,
Yeah.
and the problem with PSR is when you take two big ass trains and you smash them into one giant monster train, you still only need one crew.
Yep.
So I mean that's what's allowed them to eliminate a lot of these T&E positions, and it sucks.
Speaking,
The
a
one
lot of
thing
us.
I will say is that I think that quite honestly we're going to see kind of a short line revival in
No.
the next 10-20 years. Um, and this is just me armchair railroading. But quite honestly, I mean, you're looking at so many class ones that are looking at they don't want to be the last mile provider anymore. They want to be the bridge route.
Yep.
And I would love to agree with you, but the reality is a lot of the short line holding companies are just as bad as the class ones,
Same
but
Oh
even
yeah.
If not
cheaper.
worse.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
you
if
essentially take all of the I don't want to say too much here that could get me in trouble, but I mean, sort of the perfect regional railroad has, the assets and the resources of a class 1 but still cares enough about their local customers. That's kind of the perfect regional short line railroad. A lot of these corporate short lines sort of flip that around where they don't have the resources they need to deliver for their customers they don't care about.
That
But
sounds like the perfect regional railroad would be something employee owned.
state owned.
Hmm.
Mm.
I
I
um
Hmm.
mean,
I
I
have to
mean,
say I worked for Genesee and Wyoming. I worked for one of the better railroads in their portfolio. Um, and you would be amazed the skeleton crew that runs and maintains it. It's a railroad that for a long time had to drop the mainline speed by 25 miles an hour because they
Ooh.
could not maintain it. I think it has been raised in some places, but this is a railroad. Back in the old days, before you could get in trouble for speeding, the Bayline road trains run 70 miles an hour with no problem on jointed rail because that
yeah.
railroad was
So
fucking well maintained, and they had about 8 or 9 more customers at the time that most they could probably still have. But
like going back to what you were saying, Tom, I do think you're right. Like a publicly owned railroad. Actually, here's a hot take. The Alaska Railroad's probably one of the best examples of socialism in the United States.
the
It's
whole
owned by
state
the
relies
state.
on it.
Well, exactly, and it allows them to provide low cost transportation at the absolute lowest cost between Anchorage and Fairbanks and between all of these ports. They still operate passenger service
Flag,
for the benefit of the public.
flag stop passenger service. If you can get to the line, you can get on a train.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
From Hurricane to Talkeetna, they offer that year round, and it's they. They have honestly really good pay, really good benefits. They're not in railroad retirement. They're in a separate state pension. They're just a genuinely good employer and a good railroad. They take probably the best care of their infrastructure that I've ever seen a Class Two do. They're awesome, and a
I
lot of
love
that is
Alaska
because
Railroad.
well, and a lot of that's because they're publicly owned. You know, they don't have to answer to shareholders; they answer to the public, which just wants them to not lose money and deliver a good service to the state.
Hmm.
And honest, educated opinion here, you're going to see more of that in the future as the railroads prove that their shareholders are worth more than their market share or their infrastructure,
Well, it's
especially when we hit the infrastructure bubble in the next few years.
I mean, what's going to happen with train length? I mean, I just don't see a future where there's not a cap on train length. You have railroads that are running trains longer than their largest siding on the line. You know,
Yep.
you have these no fitter trains that have to go from terminal to terminal with everything else, whether it's an Amtrak train, whether it's another high value freight train, sitting in the siding just because they don't fit.
There was a
Uh,
JB Hunt intermodal hot shot the other day with a backing crude oil train tacked onto its rear.
I have
That's
seen
Jeez.
50, I've
insane.
seen 15,000 foot trains on CSX.
And like, it's all fine and dandy when things are going okay, but when that train has to stop unexpectedly, you can not only cut like a, you're talking about cutting towns in half.
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah,
eh,
there was
Oh man, no, they were pulling that camp train that's been sitting by my house. I was trying to go get this guy some ice the other night. They were pulling that camp train out of the siding, tacking it onto their train, and taking off, and it took 2 fucking hours. And I had
mhm.
to,
I
Jeez.
yeah,
watched I was watching something on Virtual Railfan. They just posted it like yesterday or the day before. Um Coupler knuckle broke in Elkhart, and I was watching the timestamps. They fucked up that entire town for like 5 hours.
Well, and
God.
it's if you're the conductor on the head end, do you bring the E or the F knuckle? Do you
Hmm.
walk a mile and figure it out? Do you, you
a
know,
mile, shit,
what do you
fucking
do?
2 miles.
And
Well,
that's
that's an Elkhart, a city built around the frickin' rail yard.
Carrying a 70-pound knuckle the whole way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah, but this is a
was
place where there should have been guys that just showed up. That's crazy.
and not only that, it was I mean it put the entire ass end of the train and the front end into emergency, and it was crawling to begin with, so the train just fucking locked up.
Hmm.
It's actually a really cool video to watch, but like I'm sitting here with my wife who could give a shit less watching it, and I'm like, oh, that sucks. And she's like, why? And I'm like, because that knuckle broke and that was so far back they have to walk.
At
And
least
when
it was
they
the
leave, they have to go super fucking slow because the train went into emergency.
and at least it was the knuckle. You're seeing
Yeah.
more and more of, and not on old cars, even on new cars, entire ends being ripped out,
yep. Their forces are just
entire cars
unbelievable.
being ripped in half.
Oh, I wish
My
I had that photo that JJ did. David, do you remember the one? And we did the looks good to me.
Oh yeah, where like it was like the draft gear was like half pulled out of this car.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there was one that I saw, and we were talking about at Amtrak how like we would never have that problem, and oops, but where the entirety of the car was ripped in half, clearly by a train length problem, and it was a gone, and it was one of the reinforced heavy duty brand new ones, brand new, split clean in
I
half.
know there's a lot of like, hopper cars
Really?
are
How?
losing, like grain hoppers are losing their ends too. There's some design out now. They had to put a warning on them or something.
Oh yeah, I remember that picture.
And then we could talk about string lines all day looking at UNS, but you know,
And so
Oh
this
yeah, that's
this
like them.
all circles.
That's like them piling 3 rail cars on top of each other in Atlanta the other day because they don't want to use the hump anymore, but they didn't flatten the hump,
mhm.
so they're just like ramming. You know, they have two little fucky switch engines trying to shove like 210 cars down a hill, and
And then And then they made those go sideways too.
Yeah, then they knuckled into a, they're like shoving like 200 cars at 2 miles an hour tops down a hill, and then get them rolling good, all that slack, and then they have no idea what's on the bottom, and they slam into a cut of 13 cars, and then send them scattering like fucking bowling pins because they can't control a cut that big, And
Well,
no
they
telling
had
how.
some
Yeah.
very
And you talk about slack action. There's so many cushioned cars on the rails now, especially when you're talking about PSR. I was watching Danny Harmon's video on the juice train back in the day, and I think someone was saying like there was like 2 full car lengths just in the juice train in slack action.
Those
So you're
cars,
getting up
those
to
trains
these.
were rarely 40 cars long.
Yeah, so
Rarely.
you're going up now to these 2-3 mile. How much slack action is in
There's
that?
probably
I
10,
mean,
15 cars worth at least, had to be.
yeah. And that's just, that's assuming that not all of the cars have cushion on them.
Yeah. It's unbelievable,
So,
man. I mean, they're pushing trains well beyond the limit of what is safe, and they're trying to do it with just one man on the whole move too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
When we get
you're talking about like the length of a small city. You're talking like 2-3 miles of steel.
Well, it's being when you're running a train, you're not a glorified truck driver. It's whether you're the conductor in train service or the engineer, that's a real craft. And I don't think a lot of people recognize and understand that.
I can
It's
tell you as a foamer for life, I don't.
like, and it's hard for me to imagine personally that we're gonna have computers doing that when at the same time this is the same industry that still has not successfully implemented positive train control.
They can't even make a train simulator that gets train physics right. How are they going to teach a computer to do it?
And it's
Exactly.
if they made them shorter, but
Well,
they don't want to do that either.
yeah,
the thing
that's
that
not going to
scares me
happen.
is they're going to try. And even Hunter Harrison believed in two-man crews. And he said that, but now I don't know of whether or not that was just a public statement to keep like unions happy or whatever. But even he was on record saying that there should be a conductor and an engineer on the train. So the idea that trains are going to go engineer only at any point in our lifetime or completely automated, I don't see that happening.
Not safely. I
Well,
mean, they
Especially
could try.
and
when you're running.
I think you're correct because the other thing that we have to give credit for is the Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers. At least from what I know, that's still a fairly strong union. And we have to remember,
Well, they couldn't stop
firemen was
PSR, so
firemen were still on the railroads until the 1960s. You had firemen that had to be employed by the railroad until everyone was done with steam because that was part of the union.
yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
Now they
also, you also got to remember that's pre-Reagan, so we've had a major,
Yeah,
drastic reduction in workers' rights since back then.
well,
you guys
it's
hear
any
that
union is going to be.
he killed all the birds and replaced them with drones?
Yeah, that's what they tell me.
Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah,
the microchip in my arm says different.
Oh
I will tell
man,
you what, the Windows update on my second microchip, not bad.
does it come with 5G connectivity? That's what I need to know.
Oh my god, cell service has been so much better.
that's awesome. I'm happy for you.
Okay, so we're ending this. I don't want to end our podcast on a dark note because we always have a lot of fun on this podcast, and PSR has been a grim hole because we are lucky enough to have real railroaders on our podcast. So I'm forcing everyone to play a game.
Oh no.
Okay, so real quick, since I'm gonna have to stop the recording for us to do this, we're gonna take 5 minutes, find the most cursed thing we can possible. We're gonna show it, and then
We're gonna put it in general.
we're gonna put it in our general chat, and I will link whatever it is that we find in the description. So before I stop the recording and we do that, keep an eye out for that in the description. We're going to jump to our advertisements. First off, support Train Pictures with Chaotic Auras, Northeast Cryptid Removal Organization, Penn Central Transportation Company, support Tom's eBay, support Bonga Pacific, and then
Support Pierre Marquette.
support Pierre Marquette.
Support Jeffrey.
Give me money. Support our
Just a
Patreon.
reminder for anybody that hasn't donated to the Patreon, half of our Patreon goes to railroad preservation. That's something that we're super proud of. Um, and as you guys heard earlier in the episode, we are looking to cast a driver for 5550.
Um, Also, that money is going to funnel back into eventually making our podcast work, right? Um, yeah, so I'm hoping the audio's better on this one. I had a Discord took a shit on me halfway through here, but I think
That's always a good sign.
yeah, that's good. You make one thing a little bit better, something else has to work to even it out. That's just stocks. Um,
Stonks.
yeah, stonks. Yeah, patreon.com/tpwca. The drawing for the model train is coming up soon, like real soon, about another week or so. So that's available. Like half our videos are out on Patreon only for 90 days. You know, we have a whole side series, and I'm going to be starting a series doing some quick and easy tips for a train simulator. Um, yeah, I know you can't hear me in the other video. That's kind of the point. Yeah, I'm not. You know, I'm gonna be. It'll be a little more put together than that. But I think what I want to do is I'll teach you how to. We're gonna work together. We're gonna make our own fictional. We're gonna make our own little, kind of like Tom's doing his Freemo module. We're gonna do a little switching scene in trains. I'm gonna show you guys how to do like mediocre to good scenicking and make yourself a skin. Teach you how to be familiar with the game. And I can even give some tips. Turn your anti-aliasing on 2x before you tell me your game doesn't run. Thanks.
I'm actually really looking forward to following that series because I've played trains for years and I've always been just really bad at it.
The good thing about trains is that if you're friends with cool people, they'll give you illegal things that you don't have to pay
Yeah.
for. And the other cool thing is that even though DLC is expensive, especially if you're on Steam playing like the Dovetail stuff, but I mean, you know, other than supporting Republicans at Jointed Rail, they make nice stuff, and they're one of two companies that does. So you do what you got to do. But yeah, you know, it's way cheaper than building. I can get, you know, $100 on Jointed Rail will give you a hell of a lot more than $100 at a hobby shop will. And
Oh God.
the good thing about trains is that you can build it a lot quicker, a lot easier, and you can always start over. You know, like once you get it
You
in.
are what's killing the hobby.
Yeah. Well, I don't have room. I have a Freemo module to build one day. I still have
Yep.
my. Don't worry, I still contribute. I've spent my obligatory $800 on a brass model and joined the club.
How many times?
Um, Once the other two were cheaper.
Yeah,
Some
stairs and for us.
Yeah.
somebody had to say it because it's going to be what's in the comments. All right, that's all I.
Yeah, you find me
So,
listening for one of those.
and then I'm gonna keep plugging my series. I am doing a Freemo module. I'm doing it for the Walthers Model Railroad build off. I've got today's 24th. I've got 36 days, so I'm coming up on a month left to finish this and photograph it. But I'm kind of also doing this so that you guys can see how to design and plan a Freemo module. Because we are kind of right now it's just for our group, but you guys might see a very loose leaf organization on Facebook of Fremos with chaotic auras that you can possibly join in the future and join us in dumb stuff that we do.
Depends on how cool you are. You get like a personal invite to join our secret train club.
Yeah, when we make it not so secret.
Yeah.
Okay, so it is 10:52. We have until 10:53. We have until 10:58 to go find the most cursed model railroad item you can find on eBay.
All right, let's go do that. I'll link it in the comments. Goodbye.